Syriza has a fairly healthy lead in the opinion polls over the governing centre-right New Democracy Party. And so what that means is that Syriza is highly likely to lead the next government. And this will be quite an earthquake, both for Greece and for Europe more widely, because it will be the first time that a party, many of whose roots lie in Greek communism, will have been in power since the Second World War. And for Europe as a whole, it will bring to power a party that stands, at least on the face of things, for the rejection of the policies that have been guiding Europe's response to the crisis over European monetary union. So it will come as quite a shock, even though nobody feels entirely sure just how radical Syriza would be once in office. The real question will be whether Greece's international creditors, the EU and the International Monetary Fund, will agree to give some breathing space to Syriza, and in particular its leader, Alexis Tsipras, to put together some sort of negotiating position. Assuming he wins the election, he will feel that one of his immediate obligations will be to do something for those elements of Greek society that have been hit hardest by the economic crisis, and in particular the poor, the vulnerable. Those particular policies, I don't think, would come across as absolutely unacceptable to the EU and IMF. They're rather more worried about his suggestions that he wants to arrange some kind of cancellation or repudiation of Greece's foreign debt, and that could be a real problem. But he doesn't have a great deal of room for manoeuvre here, because Greece's banks are very dependent on favourable funding terms that they get from the European Central Bank. There are also debt repayments that come up very soon after the election, and he simply doesn't have very many cards to play on that front. Certainly the risk of some kind of lesson being drawn from a Syriza victory exists. In particular, if Alexis Tsipras was able to extract some kind of debt relief from the creditors, then the message would go out to, for example, a new left-wing party in Spain called Podemos, that they might be able to also extract concessions. And it might also be that parties on the far right elsewhere in Europe, for example, the National Front in France, they might also see an opportunity to overturn what they see as the misguided German-led direction of economic policy in recent years. He's, without doubt, a clever tactician. He has learned to adopt a certain tone in his public statements that sounds more reassuring to Greece's European allies. On the other hand, his background is one of being a very forthright student radical, and it's not entirely clear that he has bought into the spirit of compromise that characterises EU policy-making. He will also need to placate the hardline former communists. So I think we are in for some tricky days ahead after the election. Tony Barber, Financial Times, Athens.